move on to our next speaker, and that is Sonia Plaza from the World Bank, and largely with the Nomad project. And Sonia is again somebody we have worked with for a long time now. And uh, let me see. Of course, I've known Sonia because of the Nomad project as well. But just to say, Sonia is a senior economist at the World Bank. She is the finance competitiveness and innovation global practice working on migration, remittances, and diaspora. And she's also co-chair of the thematic working group on remittances and diaspora of the Nomad Initiative. But everybody knows Sonia as somebody who is very passionate about the whole issue of migration and development and how remittances comes to play into this. And Sonia has always made a very strong case for recognizing this role of migrants and their remittances, and how that shapes development policy and could shape development policy and paradigm and migration governance. Sonia, but let in as we are even looking at the current COVID situation, the pandemic, and looking at, and y'all have come out, World Bank has come out with the whole issue of drop in remittances and things, and the data that y'all are churning out now with regard to how this is going to affect poverty and development and migration over the next coming months and possibly years. What do you think is this why do you think the GCM objective then on data will become so vital to the building back better program of the UN? Sonia.
Thank you very much, William. And it's a pleasure for all the organizers, the Migrant Forum of Asia, and all our colleagues and students that are here. Hello here from Washington, D.C. First of all, it's a pleasure, and I wanted to answer the question to Bella. How many of us? I always, when I go to a new country, when I have to do a mission, I go to the National Statistical Office, because I think it's very important to involve them. And it's sometimes so sad to go and to see in how very few resources they're living, but they're trying to pick up the data on migration. So I think, as Bella has said, this is a big plea to all the students also here to go and work also with the National Statistical Offices, because it's very important to capture that data. So let's talk a little bit on the questions that William has posed, and a little bit on my message. And I will talk about three things: a little bit of background, a little bit where we are, and a little bit the challenges, and a little bit of what I see from the future. So as a background, I would like to talk three issues. The first of all, as Bella has mentioned, it has been very important to include the data as a first objective on collecting data as first objectives of Global Compact on migration. Now, how well we have been done, we have said that we have to improve and invest in the collection, analysis, and dissemination of accurate, relevant, comparable data. This will be analyzed in the regional reviews and the national reviews. However, I think that we have to put a lot of more attention on investing in data, because I don't think that we have done yet so much progress. The second point that I wanted to do and to give in the context is, and Bella has been part of this effort, the Global Migration Group under the framework of Nomad, and this has been before the creators of the UN Migration, they produced the handbook for improving the production and use of migration data for development. That Bella and Frank Laszlo, Bella from UNDESA, Frank Laszlo from the IOM, they worked together in producing this 17 chapter, 16 UN organizations has put it, and as Bella has done, the definitions, the tools have been there for a long time. And this is something that is there for all the countries. And for you as students, if you want to work on this, I will put that, I will give that to William. It's as a tool for capacity development at the country level to guide how to collect this data on migration. So we have done that, and Nomad has been working on that. The second point is also, as Bella has explained, one important thing on this before the Global Compact is, for the first time, migration-related indicators were included in the SDGs. And we have the 10 one that Bella has mentioned, but the more relevant were 10.7, which is migration related migration governance, 10.7.1, which was reducing recruitment costs, and then we have the 10.C.1, reducing remittances costs, and we have SDG 17.3.2, the volume of remittances. And then apart from that, all the SDGs, including reducing poverty, education, and all the SDGs have related issues on migration, and all of them impact development. So this is a great context on the framework. And then finally, we have COVID-19. As William said, COVID-19. I see COVID-19 also as a positive outcome, and I will explain the negative and the positive outcome, but I will go through that. Then we have challenges. I think my second point is what are the challenges that we're facing to implement what has been saying on the Global Compact on Migration. And all the challenges that it came across has been funding. Okay, to implement the census and the previous census, all the countries have reported problems with funding, staff resources, capability, money to conduct. And just to give you an example, the US is implementing the census 2020 and COVID hit. Do you know how much money just put the US to continue on finalizing the census? Do you have any idea? $1 billion. They have added to the budget to finalize the census. So this is a lot of money. Could you imagine this for countries like Somalia, countries like Zimbabwe, like countries in Africa, the lowest income countries? Where do we have that resources to implement the census? And on top of that, even if we have the resources, sometimes the countries disappear the money from the census. I have seen countries that the government has still the money, not still corruption money, and the money was not available to finalize the census. So one of the issues is how we can deal with this issue on the funding, especially for the census. The second challenge is the SDG on the migration-related indicators. We have the indicators that I mentioned. However, again, to implement some of these indicators, we have to work with the national statistical offices, and to implement with those the national statistical office also they request some funding to include some of the questions. Now, do we have that funding? One of the most important, I think that is also from the civil society, and it will be important not to lose the indicator, is how to reduce the recruitment cost. This is important in the whole context of the COVID-19, because what we are going to be observing right now is that there will be less jobs opportunities, less mobility, and we are seeing now an increase on the recruitment cost for migrants to go abroad and a lot of issues on the trafficking. If we don't target, if we don't collect data for this indicator, we are missing a big part of the migrant rights. Then we have so that's the challenges that we're facing now in terms of the improving the in getting the Global Compact on Migration. Now, one of the things that we have to think is how we collect the data according to the Global Compact on Migration, because we can collect data on all the topics of migration. And maybe we have to be more choosy, and we have to be more selective in collecting this data. So can we collect data, and we have been looking at different things along the migration path, or along when the migrant leaves the country, and we are trying to collect the data on migrant stocks, migrant flows. We need, now it's very important and relevant to collect data on stranded migrants and transit migrants. We don't have those data. When the COVID and lockdown started, a lot of migrants were stranded in the countries of destination, or were countries along the journey, or in transit countries. Nobody has the data. The poor migrants were going to the embassy. Sometimes the consulates were helping them. Sometimes they were helping to the return flights. But some of the migrants were completely at their own way. Now, there's data also that we can have working at the issues of integration. We can look at how the migrants are doing, how they contributed to the diasporas contributed to their home countries, to the sending countries. There are different issues. And the other issue is along the migration cycle is the return migration. Now, return migration, before we used to try to capture in some of the surveys, but there has been forced return, voluntary return, different programs, and nobody has really a data on return migration. How many migrants are returning? How are they, what are the issues that are facing? How we can reintegrate them? There are some efforts by countries to collect some of the data, but sometimes the programs of the organizations that are return migrants, they can also even track these return migrants. So I think the Global Compact and then the countries have to have an effort now, given in the context on the current situation of COVID. Now, there are old methods and new methods to capture the data. As I have been discussing, to collect this data, it's very expensive, especially for low-income countries. And there has been a big push also to use some of the mobile data or the social big data to capture some of the trends, no? The data generated for mobile phones, online services, Twitter, Facebook, a new technology to extract. I think it will be important to combine, but these data also have their inconsistencies, no? They're biased. For example, Twitter data say, oh, we identify the migrant because according to the Twitter, that country where the Twitter owner lives, that's the country of origin. It's not true. Because, for example, I created my Twitter account in France when I was stranded in one airport waiting for my next plane, and now my Twitter account seems that I live in France. I don't live in France. I live in the United States, and I'm Peruvian. And also, it's biased because the majority of the users are young, and they cannot be represent the whole population. And then I think also we have been using a lot of the mobile calls and the mobile phones, but that's more for internal migration than for international cross-border migration. And it's important also on the privacy issues. However, I would like to look at, as William has mentioned, I think more from the positive side, the impact of COVID, okay? Yes, the impact of COVID it will be detrimental for a lot of the migrants, a lot of the countries in terms of the remittances that are going to be decreased, in terms of the poverty, in terms of the famine that is coming. And we are living in a world that it's a set of compounded risk. It's not only the COVID-19, we see in a lot of countries, we have a locust invasion, we see a lot of countries that are having economic crisis, and we know now that the La Nina is coming, and we have floods, and we have a lot of the natural disasters. So we see a compounded risk that it will have a huge, huge impact on the migration flow. So in terms of recommendations, I would like to say, we have the Global Compact on Migration, and the Global Compact on Migration is requesting improved international comparability and compatibility of data on migration. For that one, I wanted to make a call and invite all of you. NOMAD is created the International Working Group on Improving Data on Remittances. This working group will meet in September, and we will try to improve the data on remittances. This was planned in February before COVID, because we saw that still some countries, they are not using a consistent approach to report the data into the balance of payments of the IMF. And we were planning to do that. However, now that COVID has come, this becomes more immediate because we receive a lot of demands from countries to try to collect better data on remittances. Why? Because they were used to calculate this data on remittances quarterly and then monthly. But now some of the countries even are collecting the data weekly because foreign exchange is very important for these countries. And what we have seen, if you saw, we projected a decline of minus 20% on the volume total of remittances. And we have seen in certain countries, we have seen an increase in the month of June, in the month of May. And we can explain that for two reasons. One reason is that a lot of countries, because of the lockdown and the remittance service providers were closing, they couldn't send it, they couldn't travel. They didn't send money in April, May, but they start sending what they haven't sent in June and in July. No? But the second and most important thing is that a lot of countries were sending money through informal channels, and that data has never been captured. Now, because there were no other venues to send the money is going through the formal channels as well. So for that reason, this international working group on improving data on remittance is going to work on the methodologies also to calculate the informal remittances and to calculate also with how much remittances are saying. And just to give you an example, when you were saying, William, that how data shows what it needs to do, Somalia was very worried that because a lot of the banks were closing, the correspondent banks, they were very worried that remittances were not coming to the country because they were not having a way to transfer that money. When we did and we collected data, we were able to see that remittances were still coming, not through the different channels because there were some channels open. So that's the way that we can influence and see on that. The second area that I think that we have to work, so in the Global Compact on Migration, improve the international comparability, we have this international working group on data and remittances. The second area, collect, analyze, and use data on the effects of benefits of migration, and working with migrants and diaspora, the World Bank, NOMAD, different institutions, we are working on different countries, so we can have that impact. And the second area that we have to continue working is the SDGs. The SDGs are a very clear way that we can report on the data, we can report on the indicator, and we can report on the achievement of these indicators. And I think the indicator on the reducing remittances cost has to be continue monitoring, and the data has to be improved, and the methodology as well, because there's a lot of south-south corridors that are not being incorporated. Now NOMAD is working on that, and we are working also with the World Bank to incorporate more data on that. But at the same time, reducing recruitment costs and the migration governance indicators, the volume remittances, all of the data. We are trying to work, and I think there's more a call, an effort to work on more disaggregated data by migratory status, that is the most difficult to get it, and disaggregated by sex and gender. We are working on the recruitment cost indicator with ILO. NOMAD, World Bank and ILO are the custodians of this indicator, and I think that we can do more, and maybe this is also very important to work with in the main corridors. The recruitment cost is very important. And finally, what will happen with migration during COVID and after COVID? I think that this is something that we have to pay attention, and two areas. One, on the stranded, transit, and return migrants. What is going on? What is happening? What are the needs? Do they have access to social service? Do they have to access education? What are the needs? There have been some data collected, but I don't think that we have a very good approach on what is happening. And I think second is, what is the impact? The lost wages, the assets left behind of these return migrants, or do they come with some money? Would they come with, what are their needs? I think that that's an area that we need to pay a lot of attention now after COVID and during COVID. Now, the other thing that we have to do, and that's why I see as a positive thing, is that how we capture the new flows, the new journeys. I think that countries have to have a lot of focus on internal migration, and we have seen that due to COVID, in a lot of the countries, for example, in India, or in my country, there was a lot of internal migration and return migration, and the departments, the cities were not prepared for that. And also the issue intra-regional. And finally, how we can use new technologies to capture the data. What are the challenges? The issues of biased data, the privacy issues. My final plea is how we can work together. We can work with the National Statistics Office, but also we can work together with the civil society, the research institutions, to work on the different issues of migration. Just to make it NOMAD, it has been working on collecting data on return migration with IOM, is collecting data on internal migration with Professor Rajan. We are collecting data on environmental change and climate change. We are collecting data on diaspora remittances. But I think it has to be a largest effort that we can look at the most important needs of the countries. And as you said, an example on how data change the policies, I will give you an example, William. When we were working in one country in Central America, the government was making a claim that because they were receiving so much migrants for a specific country, poverty has increased in that country. When we conducted the survey, the household survey, and we did the analysis, that was not the explanation. By the contrary, migrants have contributed to that country much better and were participating in the labor market. So a lot of the policies can be based on data, but it's sometimes it's difficult. But I think if we show facts, it will be important for them to do the policy analysis, especially on remittances, especially on some of the migrant things, and especially if we show some of the integration issues as well. Over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia, and you have highlighted the challenges, and I think this is also for Bella to consider that as we come into the review process of the GCM, you have said it correctly. What is the data that we need to collect on migration? Is it left up to at the national level that countries will determine what kind of data they want to collect? Is it on remittances? Is it on how many migrants what are the flows? How many are returning? How many are reintegrated? What is the kind of data that needs to be collected? And that is still not clear, I think, at the national level and as countries are coming to the review process. It is among the first objectives, but it is not an easy objective to work with. Although the importance of it, like both you and Bella have indicated, is there. It can shape policy. It must shape policy. If you look at the chat box as well, there is a comment by Ellen Sana who's saying, and she's giving the example of the Philippines, that it is only recently that the Philippine Statistics Office has been trying to put out data kind of thing with regard to migration. But it has taken more than 8 years for the various agencies of government to agree on definition of terms in relation to migration. And this is one country. Imagine if we do it at regional and global level. So this must be something, I think, that we need to look at. I know, aside from the stocks and flows, and particularly now, and you have raised a good point, stranded migrants. How many were stranded during this time of COVID? We will never know. We will never know because nobody's capturing that data. And that is an experience of my. The other thing I like you to point out, you've touched a lot, and I know Nomad and World Bank looks at a lot of the remittances flow, and you make a good connection between poverty and development and things like that. But there is still something lacking, and that is, how do you humanize this? How do you humanize that a migrant worker who's sending $100, $200 every month? How does this migrant worker not become just another number, but a real story of how migrants become social actors of change, of development, and things like that? So this is something you might want to consider. As you are deliberating on that, I'll invite you also to look at the chat box at some of the comments that are being made.